Hey guys, this is Mr. Maurer. I'm going to show you how to make some chocolate chip cookies today. I miss all you guys, and I know it's tough being home all the time and not being able to hang out with your friends. But you know what? Let's make the best of it by making some chocolate chip cookies. These are delicious. I actually am going to use some wholesale crushed wheat. This was the stuff Mr. Ben does. It's the same stuff they use to make the bread that I bring in once in a while that you guys love so much. We got some brown sugar, some regular sugar, some baking powder. Now the recipe calls for baking soda, but I find that if you use baking powder, the cookies actually get thicker, a little fluffier instead of really flat. We've got some salt, some imitation vanilla, which you can use regular vanilla instead of imitation, some chocolate chips, some butter, an egg from one of my chickens, and then we've got a half cup measuring cup, a third of a cup measuring cup, a quarter cup measuring cup. I've got a half of a teaspoon and a quarter of a teaspoon here, and then our mixing bowl. All right, so we're going to start off with the wholesale crushed wheat number one. Now, if you don't have this, and I don't expect that you do, you can use flour. Just regular white flour works the same. This stuff's just healthier for you, so that's why I use it. All right, so we're going to get 1.5 cups. So I'm going to use my half cup, and I'm going to get 3 of them. Broke the handle. It was broken before. I'm going to make sure we level it off really good. All right, we're going to get 3 of those. Okay, we got the flour in there. So next on our list, we're going to go with the baking powder, which you can see it takes a half a teaspoon of baking soda. But for every half teaspoon of baking soda, you need 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Again, I'm using the baking powder because it makes the cookies bake up thicker, which I like. So I'm going to get my half teaspoon. Okay. And I'm going to get my baking powder, which is here. And I'm going to get 3 of these because they're each a half, and I need 1.5. Now, one thing to remember when you're using either baking soda or baking powder, you always want to level it off. So you can see I leveled it off here. And the way I do that is I just scrape it across this right here, and that levels it off. So I'm going to get 3 of those and put each into here. All right, baking soda is in there. Excuse me, the baking powder. And next we're going to go with the brown sugar. Now the recipe calls for 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. Originally it said a quarter cup, but I found that 1/3 cup gives the cookies just a little bit more sweetness, and I like that. So I upped it to 1/3 of a cup. So I'm going to grab my 1/3 of a cup here. Now with brown sugar, you don't want to just scoop it out of the bag. Brown sugar you want to pack down into the measuring device in most cases. Unless a recipe tells you not to pack it in, brown sugar should always be packed in. So I'm going to grab that next. All right, so there's my brown sugar, nice and firmly packed. You'll see when it comes out of here, it's a nice packed clump. All right, so next we're going to go with the white sugar. The recipe calls for a half a cup. So I'm going to go back to my half cup measuring cup, and I'm going to scoop up a half cup. Okay, again, you want to level it off real nice in the measuring cup. Sprinkle it in. There we go. Next on the list, we're going to go with some salt. You really don't want much salt in a recipe like this because nobody wants salty cookies. But the recipe calls for 1/4 of a teaspoon. So here's my 1/4 of a teaspoon. As you can see, it's really small, it doesn't take much. So I'm just going to use the spout here, dump a little bit in there, and dump it in as well. Okay, there's my salt, sprinkled around. Okay, so the salt's done. Both my sugars are done. I always move things over to the side as I use them, so I remember I used them. Next, we're going to go with some vanilla. Again, I've got imitation vanilla. You can use pure vanilla extract, which is what I usually use, but it's really expensive. So we're going to go with the imitation this time. The recipe calls for a full teaspoon. So I'm going to use my half teaspoon, and I'm going to get 2 of them. Okay, the vanilla's in there. Just a little tip, whenever you're pouring the vanilla out of there into this, do it over the bowl. That way if you spill it a little bit, it goes in the bowl and not on the countertop, which creates a mess. All right, next we're gonna go with the butter. This takes a whole stick of butter. Notice I use actual butter, not margarine, or any of that other man-made crap. We're gonna go with the good, real, unsalted, sweet cream butter. All right. Okay, as you see, I am cutting the butter into smaller cubes. Really all this does is it makes it mix up just a little bit easier. So I'm gonna put each of these butter cubes in. Okay, there they are. And we have an egg. One egg is what the recipe calls for. So we'll crack it open, dump it in. I like to put the egg in the butter in last. That puts it at the top of the mix, and it gives the top a little bit more liquid. If you put the egg in the bottom, then the liquid from your egg is at the bottom. It's harder to mix up and get into the rest of the mix. So if you put it on top, it soaks down in there a little bit, mixes up a little bit better. All right, we've got the egg in there. And the only thing we've got left is chocolate chips. This recipe calls for 3/4 cup of chocolate chips. So I'm going to use my 1/2 cup and my 1/4 cup. And I'm going to put chocolate chips in each of those, which will give me exactly a 3/4 cup. All right, there are my chocolate chips. Here's my 1/2 cup. Here's my 1/4 cup, which gives me 3/4 cup total. Hey, if you got extra chocolate chips, put them in there. You can't have too many chocolate chips in the cookies. All right, so now we should be ready to mix it up. All right, I've got my mixer ready to go. I'm gonna give you a little safety tip here. When you're putting these beaters into your mixer, always put those in before you plug it in, okay? Don't plug it in and then try to put the beaters in, because if you would accidentally hit the button over here and turn it on, you're gonna do some damage to your fingers. So always put those in before you plug it in. Now, before I start mixing all this up, the recipe says we need to put the cookies at 350 degrees for 10 minutes, all right? So while I'm getting ready to mix, I might as well preheat the oven. So you're gonna hit, on mine I hit bake, and then my temperature's already set at 350. If I needed to go up, I just hit the up button, down. Everybody's oven's a little bit different, but this one automatically sets at 350, so I'm gonna hit start, and that's gonna preheat my oven. Okay, by the time I get done mixing up the batter over here, the oven should be nice and ready to put the cookies in. All right, so we're gonna make sure we mix everything up really, really good. This takes some time, be patient with it. The butter especially takes a long time. You gotta wait for it to kind of warm up and melt down. But you wanna make sure you mix everything very thoroughly, okay, until you get a real nice mixture. This is Kevin's favorite part. He likes cookies. He's getting anxious because he thinks he's gonna get some. So, all right, I'll be right back when I'm finished mixing. Okay, it's starting to get there, but as you can see, the butter's still pretty chunky. Okay, it's got to soften up, and it takes some time. So just be patient with it. Just keep mixing. Some of the brown sugar you can see in here is still a little clumpy, and we want to make sure we get that all broken down and mixed to a real nice consistency. Okay, as you can see, we're starting to get there, getting closer. I usually use the lowest 2 settings on the mixer. You can kind of experiment and do what you think works best. But when this stuff starts clumping together real nice and you don't see the individual pieces of brown sugar or butter, or, you know, it should just be, you know what cookie dough looks like. We all like cookie dough, especially in our ice cream. So you know what it looks like. Look for that. All right, there we go. We got a nice consistency there. No longer have the little particles of sugar or anything that are visible. We're ready to start forming these into balls. My oven's up to 301 degrees, so we're getting close. So I'm going to grab a couple cookie sheets, start forming these into balls. All right, important note here. Always wash your hands before you do this. I shouldn't have to tell anybody during this time period that you need to wash your hands, but just in case, wash your hands. Okay, I've got 2 cookie sheets here. We don't have to do anything to them. They don't have to be pre-greased or anything like that. I assume because of the butter in the cookie dough, they don't stick, so they come out real nice. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab whatever you think. Making, oh, my oven's ready. We're gonna make a ball out of these. I usually make them about the size of a golf ball. Okay. And then just gonna place it on the sheet. I'm gonna flatten it down just a little, like that. And we're gonna fill our cookie sheet. We should be able to get about 3 across and about 3 or 4 this way, and probably 2 by 4 in this sheet. We'll see what we come up with. All right, as you can see, I managed to get a dozen on here. I got another 8 on there, so we're gonna have 20 cookies. Notice I flattened them down. You gotta leave a little space in between them because when they bake, they will expand a little bit. They'll melt down and spread out, so you don't want them running into each other. So at this point, we're ready to put them in the oven. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, got them in the oven, shutting the door. Recipe calls for 10 minutes. So over here, I'm gonna hit the timer button. Gonna put in 10 minutes, hit start, and now we just wait. And while we're waiting, we're gonna clean up our mess. Okay, we got things to clean up here. We're gonna put the measuring cups and the beaters in the sink, the measuring bowl in the sink. Make sure to put all of our ingredients back away, throw away our eggshell and any wrappers we have. Guys, it's important to always clean up after yourself, and I think I know a way to clean this bowl out. Okay, got my area all cleaned up, got everything put away, dishes are in the sink. We've got about 6.5 minutes left. It's a good time to go ahead and get out an oven mitt. When these come out of the oven, they're going to be really hot. So I'm going to use an oven mitt. And when I pull them out, I'm probably going to set them right here on top of the stove, because those pans, you don't want to set them on a countertop because they will burn it. They could ruin it. Make sure you either set it on like a stovetop or on some sort of hot pads or something like that. Okay, as we're approaching the 3-minute mark, things are looking pretty good in there. The cookies are flattening out, taking nice shape. So they're gonna be delicious. Okay, we're down to the last few seconds here. Timer's going off. I'm gonna take a peek, see how they look. Again, I've got my oven mitt on. Don't want to burn my hand. Pull them out and take a look. Those look pretty good. They look just a little moist in the center, but that's okay with me. You want to kind of look around the bottom edge a little bit to see if they're brown. I think I'm actually going to put these back in for about 30 more seconds just to let them bake just a little bit more, because I think they could go just a bit more. All right, here we go. I end up leaving them in for about another minute, so 11 minutes total. This is the first time I've ever had to bake them longer than 10, but I think I made them just a little bit bigger than normal. So, you know, if you make them a little bigger, you might have to put them in for a little bit longer. If you make them a little smaller, then you might want to take them down 30 seconds or a minute and take a look at 9 minutes and go from there. But as you can see, they came out really, really nice. They look delicious. Nice sized cookies. It's important, don't forget to shut your oven off. I did that. So the only thing left to do now is to just let them cool and enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's my first ever attempt at a cooking baking video. So give them a try yourself, and I hope they turn out good for you. Bye.